Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving straight into a story you probably think you know inside out, but which actually holds incredibly deep layers of ancient cosmological and genealogical secrets. Relying heavily on the profound weight of the KJV 1611 text, we are going to explore the very foundations of human history, uncovering the mystery of the two seeds, the prototype Nephilim, and a hidden subterranean world lurking beneath the planar earth. We are going to unpack the mystery of the two seeds, look at the very first Nephilim, track Abel's soul down into Sheol, map out a hidden subterranean city, and finally witness the ultimate, deeply ironic judgment of Cain.
So let's kick things off with the mystery of two seeds.
Right off the bat, we find something absolutely fascinating in Genesis regarding Cain's true origin. When God speaks to the serpent in the garden, he says, "I will put enmity between thy seed and her seed." Now, according to ancient rabbinical traditions, this wasn't just some poetic metaphor, it was a literal declaration. We are talking about two actual physical bloodlines that were destined to war against each other across the entire span of human history.
And the original languages really back this up. Take the Hebrew anomaly F Yahweh Va. When Eve gives birth to Cain, she uses this incredibly bizarre phrasing, sometimes translated as even the Lord, which has puzzled scholars forever. But if we flip over to the New Testament, specifically 1 John 3:12, the Apostle John uses the specific Greek word ek to describe Cain. He says Cain was ek, that wicked one. That literally translates to originating out of him. It's the language of paternal origin, right? He's not just saying Cain acted badly, he's pointing to a literal physical lineage.
You really see this contrast when you compare the biblical accounts of the births. When Seth is born, the text explicitly tells us Adam begat a son in his own likeness, after his image. But with Cain, there is just this massive, conspicuous silence. Adam's name is completely missing from the declaration, and so is that crucial phrase, in his own likeness. Ancient traditions, like the legends of the Jews, actually suggest that Adam and Eve experienced superfetation, which is when twins are conceived by two entirely different fathers during the exact same pregnancy. They knew Cain physically took after the adversary.
Which brings us right into the terrifying reality of what Cain actually was, the prototype Nephilim.
This leads us to the catastrophic clash of these two seeds. Listen, this was not some sudden crime of passion or accidental manslaughter. It was deeply, coldly premeditated. God personally warned Cain, and Cain just completely brushed it off. The ancient Septuagint text actually adds a chilling detail, showing how Cain specifically lured his brother by saying, "Let us go into the field." The Hebrew word used for the act is harag, which implies deliberate, violent intent. And the aftermath? Zero remorse for Abel. Cain was only terrified for his own skin, because, fundamentally, the text portrays him as a man-killer by nature. So what actually set him off? Well, the ancient Book of Jasher gives us the exact play-by-play of the arguments that ignited Cain's volcanic rage out there in that isolated field. First up, a massive territorial dispute over how to divide up the planar earth. Second, Cain wildly accused Abel of basically rigging the system, manipulating God to reject Cain's sacrifice. And third, a bitter dispute over which brother would take a specific sister as a wife. Talk about a powder keg. But to really understand the sheer violence of that moment, we have to look at texts like the Book of Giants. Cain wasn't just a disgruntled farmer. He was the prototype Nephilim, the fallen ones. These were the offspring of supernatural seed mixed with human flesh. Because Cain carried that literal seed of the adversary, he possessed a sudden, overwhelmingly formidable violence. Imagine poor Abel, a gentle shepherd in a world that had literally never seen human death before. He had absolutely no framework to even process what was happening, let alone defend himself against this corrupted being.
And that tragic moment leads us directly to our next revelation, Abel's soul entering Sheol.
When Abel fell, a human soul departed from its body for the very first time in history, and there's this profound separation that happens. His physical blood remained right there on the planar earth, literally crying out to God for justice, but his nephesh, his living, conscious, spiritual identity, departed. Abel became the absolute pioneer of death, stepping into a completely unseen realm, entirely alone. As the very first human to die in faith, he entered Sheol's realm of comfort, a place we'd later come to know as Abraham's bosom. Can you imagine the profound loneliness, yet undeniable peace of his position? He was the sole resident of paradise, waiting there for thousands of years as the righteous dead slowly began to join him, waiting all that time until Christ finally descended to lead captivity captive.
Meanwhile, things on Earth were taking a bizarre turn with the subterranean city of Enoch.
Let's look at Cain's punishment, because it forced him into a really mysterious exile within ancient cosmology. Pay attention to the precise Hebrew phrasing used here. Cain complains he's being driven from the paneh, which means the face or the visible surface of the earth. But then he says he's going to be a wanderer aretz, meaning in the earth. See, the ancient understanding was that the planar earth was multi-layered, complete with an inhabitable interior. Cain wasn't just roaming the surface, he was driven deep inside.
And this brings up a huge paradox. Genesis tells us Cain was marked for death, absolutely terrified that anyone who found him would kill him. Yet, in the very next breath, it says he built a city. Now think about that. You don't build a massive, highly visible city out in the open if you're a terrified fugitive. You build where absolutely no one can find you. You build a hidden civilization.
Ancient texts actually point to pre-Adamic populations already dwelling down in those subterranean caves. And if you track Cain's descendants, like Tubal-Cain, who the Bible calls an instructor of brass and iron, it all clicks. The Cainite lineage was developing the exact, highly sophisticated metallurgical technologies you would need to excavate, sustain, and light up a massive, concealed city deep within the planet Earth.
They named it the city of Enoch, which translates to dedicated or inaugurated. But make no mistake, this was an inauguration of pure darkness. It was a perfect reflection of the adversary's own modus operandi, creating a hidden, underground kingdom that operated in total concealment, completely shielded from the surface world.
But you can't hide forever. Let's look at the final judgment of Cain.
Divine justice might move slowly, but it always catches up. Just look at this timeline. For 6 generations, the corrupted seed of Cain just intensified. It all culminated in a man named Lamech. He was the first recorded polygamist, degrading the divine design even further. And, as fate would have it, Lamech was the one who inadvertently carried out an ancient, long-awaited vengeance. There's a fascinating passage scholars call the Song of the Sword, and it's one of the most cryptic ancient poems in Genesis. Lamech comes to his wives and confesses he's slain a man and a young man. For centuries, this was just a total mystery. But the ancient Book of Jasher actually decodes this for us, revealing it was the result of a tragic, frankly unbelievable hunting expedition back up on the surface of the earth.
Here's how it went down. Lamech had grown old and entirely blind. He was out hunting in the wilderness, relying entirely on the verbal directions of his young son, Tubal-Cain. Tubal-Cain spots movement way off in the distance and tells his father to let the arrow fly. Lamech shoots. But when they walk up to claim their prize, they realize it wasn't an animal at all. Lamech had accidentally shot Cain, the ancient ancestor, the first murderer, who was apparently wandering the surface. In a fit of absolute, agonizing grief and rage over what he'd just done, Lamech strikes out blindly and ends up killing his own son, Tubal-Cain.
I mean, the horrific irony here is just staggering. Think about it. Cain introduces murder into the world, lives for generations in absolute terror of being killed, and is finally taken out by a blind arrow shot by his own great-great-great-grandson. Lamech then turns around and demands 70 and 7-fold protection, basically arguing that his kill was a genuine accident, unlike Cain's. But the violence Cain unleashed onto the planar earth had circled all the way back to violently consume his own corrupted bloodline.
It truly brings the whole narrative full circle. The blood of Abel, which had been crying out from the soil for 6 long generations, finally got its justice. And it happened in the exact same wilderness environment where the very first murder took place. The cosmic scales were finally balanced.
Which leaves us with a pretty massive question to ponder. We've traced the 2 seeds, the terrifying reality of the prototype Nephilim, those hidden subterranean cities, and the inescapable reach of divine justice. As we wrap up this explainer, you really have to wonder, if the ancient enmity of the 2 seeds caused such devastating corruption back then, are the echoes of that corrupted lineage still reverberating beneath our feet today? Are there hidden manifestations of this ongoing war walking the planar earth right now, just waiting for the final judgment? It definitely changes how you look at ancient history, doesn't it? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning everything, and I'll catch you in the next one.